So in this video, I want to share with you how you can go about selling your home with little to no equity. Okay, my name is Bryson. I'm with Uplift Home Buyers, and for the past 18 months, we've seen a high uptick in the number of families that are needing to sell a property, but unfortunately, they don't have enough equity to do so. In fact, there's been plenty of families that go and list their property on the market with an agent, and they later find out that they have to bring money to the close table or break even, as well as families that don't go with an agent are needing to sell, but then they go through a process of talking to tons and tons of buyers and just to realize that they don't have enough equity. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, okay? So right now we are working, there's a family that a young kid moved up to Arkansas, and he did so because he got accepted to a grad school to become an anesthesiology, okay? Don't bitch if I beat that up, okay? So, and he had a home back here in San Antonio, okay? So he did some renting, but then ran into some issues with the property manager, okay? So now he wants to sell. But the problem is there's no equity in the home, okay? So the values of the properties in the area are selling for about $310,000, okay? And on average, you're gonna have about 10% closing costs if you go with an agent to sell your house, okay? And I can tell you most of the time, if you have a property that maybe is fairly new, because the ones that we're mainly dealing with are all have loans from the year of 2019 up until 2023, okay? So you're probably not going to be talking to a cash buyer, an investor who's going to come in, put some work into the house, and then turn around and sell it for a profit, right? Because you have a fresh loan. So an investor can't do anything with it because an investor needs to make a profit margin. So most likely you're going to end up exploring going with an agent or figuring out how to sell the property. And when you do so, what happens is you have 6% agent fees. Seller is going to pay the buyer's agent fees along as the seller's agent. And then you're going to have about 2% closing costs, okay? And then on average, you're going to have anywhere between 1 to 2% concessions, especially in today's market, okay? So that equates to 10% of selling costs, okay? Now, for this particular individual, he doesn't live in the property. So each month that goes by to try to sell this home, he's having to pay the mortgage, okay? And days on market in the area is about 4 months, okay? 120 days. So what I did was I added holding costs, which is his payments times 4 payments is $9,200, okay? And then the mortgage is owed, it's about $280,000, right? Now this mortgage was pulled out in 2022. So if we add all these up and minus it by the 310, we come up with a negative $9,200. Now let's say that you live in the property, so you're like, well, I have to pay my mortgage anyways, or whatever the case is. Well, in this case, in that scenario, you would still break even, and that's if the house sells at 310. So if you have to start dropping the price, every time you drop the price, is the deeper hole that you end up digging yourself in. Okay. And at this point, this is where most homeowners get stuck because they don't know what to do. The agents don't know. They're like, well, I don't know. I could try and shave my percentage off, but it doesn't seem like it's going to work. And I can tell you 98% of families are not willing to come to the closing table to pay out or clear their loan, okay? And if some end up breaking even, a lot of times families may need some type of money so that they can actually move or do whatever it is that they need to do. So in this situation, 95% of real estate professionals are out because they don't know what to do. And that's where the 5% that understands these particular situations and know how to navigate comes in, okay? So what we do is we actually offer, okay? We offer to keep the loan in place, okay? And then we become responsible for your mortgage payment. And now you might say, wait a second, why will my loan have to stay in place? Well, based on the numbers, right? Or you may even say, if you're watching this and you just came across a video, you may say, well, why would somebody ever leave their loan in place? Well, if we look back at the scenario, nobody's going to come to the close table to pay off the loan or may need some money, okay? So when you went to the bank and you bought a property, when you bought the property, the bank gave you a deed to the house. The deed is the ownership of the property, okay? That's who controls the property. And they gave you that deed to the property. And in exchange, you promised, okay, you signed a promissory note, a deed of trust, or what I like to call is an IOU, that you will pay them back. Now, what happens if you stop making your mortgage payment? All right, what happens? Well, if you stop making your mortgage company or mortgage payment, I can reassure you that the lender is coming for that property. Okay, and then what they're going to do is they're going to foreclose and take the property back. Okay, that's how they exercise, because it's the language that's in the IOU. Hey, you promised that you're going to pay us back. You stop making payments. I'm taking the property back. So one of the biggest concerns is, well, what happens if I leave my loan in place and then you stop making payments, right? Like, that's going to ruin my credit, or that's going to damage me. Well, the same process that you did when you went and bought your property with your lender is the same exact process that we're doing. So then okay, you're going to end up transferring the deed, right? So we're going to do the same thing to deed. Okay, house, and then it goes to the investor, okay, or us if we were the ones buying the property. And then in exchange, the protection for you is the same thing with the bank, right? Promise. We promise to make those payments, okay? And guess what? If we stop making your payments, now you actually get to take the property back. Now, what I like to draw is like, because people say, well, man, like, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know if that really makes sense. Well, right now, you can't sell the property. But let's say that we woke up on the wrong side of bed 4 or 5 years later. So, you know what? We're going to stop making the payments, okay? Well, guess what? In this situation, maybe house values goes up to $350, okay? And then the mortgage is now at, let's say it's at $255. Okay, so right there, that is $95,000 in equity. Obviously, you got to back out the selling cost stuff, but now you're in a much better seat than you are today. Okay, so I always tell families, hey, here's the worst case that can happen if we just stop making payments. Years to come, you actually then can take the property back. You could keep it, you could sell it, make some money, and now you won. Okay, but I'm going to break the bad news. We're not here to lose money, right? Especially we're going to come in, we're going to maybe pay you out. We got some money and some repairs, right? Or whatever the case is. We're not here to lose money. We're here to make money. And the only way we can do that is if we continue to make payments, and then we're going to cash flow. So we do one or two things with the properties like this, okay? Because again, we can't turn around and sell it outright because there's not enough equity. So we either going to rent the property, okay, and make some cash flow, or we're going to sell it owner finance, and our borrower, the same thing that we did is what we're going to do with our borrower. And if they default, we still have to make the mortgage payments. It does not matter. It doesn't matter what happens. If we rent the property and the tenant stops making payments, we are still responsible to make your payment, okay? Like if we're having an evicted tenant, we're still responsible, okay? So understand that once you sell it, it's no longer your property. Although your loan is in place, it is no longer your responsibility for the property. You don't call the bank, okay, and say, hey, my HVAC system went out. The bank's like, why are you calling me? Call the HVAC guy. Where's the money? Okay? Same thing. We're not calling you and say, hey, the HVAC went out. You're like, that's not my property anymore. Did you make my payment? That's how this works, okay? It is now our responsibility, okay? So that is usually the biggest concern when we are chatting with families. So I wanted to make a video, and I wanted to actually visually draw it out, show you how this process works, okay? And believe it or not, we are having to do this a lot, okay? There's a lot of families, regardless of situation. Maybe some are military, they need to relocate. Maybe it's a job relocation. Maybe it's a divorce. Maybe you fell behind on payments. If you fell behind on payments, we will actually catch your payments up. and then we will keep the loan in place if there is little to no equity in the property, and we do that all the time. So again, my name is Bryson. I wanted to make this video. I hope this helps. If you are in this situation, feel free to go to our website. It's uplifthomebuyers.com. Okay, fill out the form, and somebody from our team will reach out and we can have the discussion. We can figure out what is the best way for you to go about selling your property. Maybe there is a way to help you sell it outright without even having to do this, okay? Or maybe there's some other creative way. All right, so give us a call and love to have that discussion with you.